Hey, so I wanted to give a commentary on the state of the channel and share my perspective on not having much success on YouTube. Along with how making content and trying to court the favor of the YouTube algorithm has reinforced a lot of my negative thought patterns. And I suppose this is a universal grievance of anybody who has a channel because you always want more in the form of views, followers, comments, which all boils down to more attention. And it's quite depressing to admit, but creating content is what takes up most of my time, as I haven't made any actionable steps towards my job search, which is to be considered the correct thing in society's eyes. And I've been doing this since I dropped out of college, so going on over 2 months now, and I haven't had any kind of breakthroughs. And here's where I feel a bit of a dilemma is that the type of content I'm doing is supposed to stem from a unique, authentic viewpoint. But I'm beginning to realize why I haven't had much success is that even for people who have a similar background and experience, I'd say I'm far more boring than the average person. And that's mainly attributed to my cowardly and self conscious nature, which constantly has discouraged me from stepping out of my comfort zone, resulting in me having very few experiences where I've grown or developed myself. But I still had some hope for the channel, and you can chalk it up to wishful thinking or internal bias, as when we think about and articulate our individual experiences, we imagine them to be far more impactful and interesting than they actually are. You can try and downplay your self centered nature all you want. I know I've tried to, and tell yourself that you're a boring, uninspiring person in hope of being more objective and to remove expectations. But it doesn't matter if the experience leaves a positive or negative impact, we're going to view it as important, otherwise, why would our brain keep it in memory? And that's just how we internally process our experiences. However, when it comes to the internet, we're given the incentives of attention and validation, further driving people to frame their experiences with greater impact and meaning. So, if your goal is to capture as much attention as possible, and you're within the niche of doing personal commentary, it's reasonable to conclude that there's no benefit to being truthful about your experiences if everything is for the sake of engagement. I think a good example of this in the Black Pill commentary space is loser maxing, as the community has come to a consensus that his personal stories are fake or at the very least highly exaggerated. But it doesn't matter whether his content is truthful, as any pushback is going to be received as viewer engagement, and the people who do enjoy his videos will keep watching regardless. But wrapping up this point on loser maxing, I'm not trying to defend the sanctity of online YouTube commentary. It's just to me, he's on the extreme end of commentary content where it's formulaic and inauthentic, but still entertaining, because he isn't limiting himself through his experience. Then, on the other end of commentary channels, are those that are completely honest and upfront about their experiences. And it's rather tricky to give a prime example of this, because unlike loser maxing, these channels are quite underground to the point where I'm not even aware of them. But then again, I'm not scrolling through YouTube in search of this stuff. Going back to the self centered tendencies of people, maybe I would consider myself among those that are truthful when expressing themselves. But yeah, I think it's possible for those channels to find success on YouTube, but it comes at the cost of foregoing some of your originality. For example, I know there is a big resurgence in COD commentary, so much so that all you need to do in the thumbnail is have a screenshot of the game, maybe put some text and an image or two, and the YouTube algorithm will do the rest. Another big one is Minecraft. I'm not sure if there are others, but those are the two main games I can think of where the gameplay is such a huge factor in pushing the video. There is also the alternative of doing talking head style commentary, but I don't think that would work for me. Plus, within the BP space, that's not as encouraged because it's assumed we're all ugly. And for the sake of success, it mainly has to do with whether you're attractive or not, as that's going to influence a lot of whether you get views. As for the actual content, it's ironic, but this is the least important part because once people have actually taken time to click on the video, they assume you're a pretty interesting person, so they're going to want to hear what you have to say regardless of whether it has any value. As for me, I don't know if it's some messed up sense of pride or a futile attempt to remain original, but I don't see myself following the major trends of commentary, even though I know I'm dooming myself to obscurity. And let me just say this in case anyone does bother to listen, but I'm tired of this false sense of service that YouTube channels are always going on about. Saying things like, oh, I'm making this channel to help people who are going through similar stuff, or if I can just help one person watching, it's just so tiring and disingenuous. Because I'm willing to admit this whole channel is for me and my pathetic attempts at satisfying my selfish, attention seeking nature, because I have no self esteem and nobody in my life to affirm that what I say has any value. But I suppose I got what I deserved, by having a complete drought in views, I might as well be recording this stuff and not posting it. I also think the subject of my videos is often too sporadic and ranty, and if it's personal stuff, people won't take a strong interest in things they can't really relate to. But to talk more about how making content hasn't been the best for my mental, it probably has reaffirmed a lot of the negative sentiments I have toward any goal I pursue. As someone with pretty low self esteem, when things don't go my way, I have a bad tendency to take things too personally and focus on my own wrongdoing instead of the wider context of the situation. At this point in my life, I don't have many opportunities to socialize IRL, so I turned to posting stuff on the internet as a last ditch effort. But I was a fool to believe that all I had to do was be myself and people would come in droves to hear me talk about anything. And when it comes to quantifying success on YouTube, it couldn't be more cut and dry. As everything is turned into statistics, graphs, or percentages, it's almost trying to gamify the process of content creation. But as I was saying about my negative mindset, is that if you start to get personally attached to the content you're making, which will eventually happen if you're doing commentary on your experiences, is that you're setting yourself up for disappointment. Because when your channel doesn't do well, like in the case of mine, it's easy to come to the conclusion of, well, it must be all my fault, and if only I was a more interesting, articulate person, then I would succeed. It's like the saying of, if a tree falls in the forest and no one is around to hear it, does it make a sound? If you're broadcasting your experiences to the world but no one is willing to listen, then what value do they have? They might as well not exist. And if you are the sum of your experiences, then what does that say about you? Okay, I'm getting a bit too schizo at this point in the video. I don't really know what I was trying to get at there. But maybe I was trying to say is that the effort you put into your aspirations and goals is most accurately reflected in the response of your external environment. And for me, I'm using the example of making videos and receiving attention as a gauge for the importance of my experience and value as a person. I just don't see myself accomplishing anything worthwhile for the foreseeable future, and I've already gotten into the routine of making these videos since they're so low effort, so this is what I'm sticking with. And I don't know why I keep trying to address the viewer as if many people are listening, but I will just say that if you never try to do commentary, I don't think it's worth your time assuming you're doing something worthwhile with your day. People who encourage stuff like this are just appealing to your desire of wanting others to validate your life experiences and affirm the idea that you're an interesting person. I mean, I can't know exactly who's watching this video, but I can make a general guess that you might have a similar experience of being a shy, awkward person who's never felt like what they had to say was important to anyone. And those feelings of unimportance and isolation led you to the internet, where creating content was expressing the hope of that other people were wrong about you and what you had to say about yourself in the world was actually meaningful. Alright, I'm going to stop now at the projection and end the video here. I wanted this to be some kind of insightful analysis on the state of YouTube commentary and the struggles of an unsuccessful channel, but it was just a shitty rant with a bunch of disconnected points. I guess that's what happens when you put no time into scripting, but I didn't think this was going to yield many results in the first place. The next video might be better, so that way this video can technically end on a positive note. Alright, goodbye now.